Teachers, what's the worst thing you've heard a colleague say about a student?
Story 1. My junior year, a teacher had a miscarriage. When she came back, she was a bit mad at the class for a bunch of a-holes acting like D-bags and yelled quite a bit. A student got up and said something to the effect of, "Guess it's a good thing you had a miscarriage." She broke down and cried. One of the other teachers came and got her. For about 15 to 20 minutes, there was total silence. Then the vice principal came in with a totally red face. Kid tried to say she deserved it and fought back when he tried to grab him. Vice principal punched him in the face hard. Kid stopped fighting. Total silence for the rest of the hour. Vice principal never got in trouble. Parents actually approved of their kid being suspended. I'm not going to say that a vice principal hitting a student is ever okay, but I can understand that kind of rage coming from that, because what that student said was also absolutely wildly unacceptable, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the kind of thing that, that's a reputation-ruining, awful thing to say. I know the teacher's mad and lashing out, and maybe the teacher's not a great person, but wowzers, you don't say something like that, but also you don't punch a kid in the face. I mean, woof. Story 2. I taught in Japan for a bit. I was kind of lucky because I got to start in the middle of the year as a result of my mid-year application for the job. Usually school starts in April, but I applied in July, started in August. The reason I got to start in the middle of the year was the guy teaching at that school before me was fired for harassing a student. This was at a middle school. That guy was in his late 20s and he was hitting on a 15-year-old girl. She was wearing a Simon at a festival and he asked her if she was wearing anything underneath it. He had a slight history of creepiness towards the girls, so this was the last straw. So now I'm working there and getting along great with the staff because I'm not paid. One day I'm getting a ride somewhere with the vice principal and we pass some high school kids on their bikes. He leans over in the car and judges my arm and gestured to some of the high school girls. He said, "Hey, high school girls." It was uncomfortable for the rest of the ride. I think he was just testing me to make sure I wasn't like the previous guy, but I'm not entirely sure. I frickin' hate creepy teachers who hit on high school girls. And there's no argument that makes it okay to me. Oh, but their bodies are developing and that most of them look like adults, but they're not. You can tell by the way that they act and talk. I mean, there's no offense to you teenagers. You're allowed to be teenagers and grow up and act the way you act. We all do that. But it's even when I was in my younger 20s, I could tell the difference between myself and the other younger 20-somethings and teenagers. It's so apparent. And so it's just gross. I don't take any of the excuses. Just weird. And I'm sorry if that's the vice principal's way of testing you. It is just creepy.
Story 3. When I was in 6th grade, there was this kid. I'll call him Danny. Danny was an idiot of the highest caliber. The kid just sat there with a blank look on his face all day, every day. We're going over the human body and digestion one day, and teacher decides to throw Danny an easy question out to boost him up a bit. She asks him how we get liquid into our bodies. Danny sits there with a blank look and says, "I don't know." She prompts him again by asking how he gets liquid into his body when he's thirsty. Danny replies, "I don't know." She is amazingly frustrated at this point and goes as far to ask, "Danny, how do you get water into your body when you're thirsty?" And he replies, "I don't know, through your skin maybe?" She freaks out and loses her crap. He's sitting there looking dated as always, and Mrs. Teacher charges to the back of the room and grabs his arm. She pulls him out of his seat and drags him to the front of the classroom where there was a sink. The water gets turned on and she shoves his arm into the stream and keeps yelling at him, "Through the skin? Through the skin? How are you feeling now? Are you getting full? Are you getting enough water?" I'm nearly 40 now, and I will remember that scene for the rest of my life with mixed amounts of horror and amusement.
Okay, I know we all want to have a little laugh about it, and I did laugh through the skin. It is funny, but when you do stop and think about it, though, I don't know, maybe Danny had kind of a learning disability or something, or just wasn't paying attention. I don't think he deserved to be drug in front of the class and embarrassed like that. It's a bit too far. And yeah, I know, I'm not going to be able to control. My initial reaction is, it's funny to read, but, there's plenty of funny stuff in movies that you shouldn't actually do in real life. We get that, right?
Story 4. If you're Asian, you will be told to stop studying Chinese characters if you're not paying attention. If you're Latino, he will ask questions about which community college you're going to. If you look European, like I do, he assumes you're an immigrant. I've been told multiple times to make sure you write your test in English, and when calling him out on that, be told something along the lines of, in Poland, your behavior would not be acceptable at all while keeping a stupid grin on his face. I wonder how he still has a job. Story 5. My gran died literally the day before my final university exam, so I applied for special consideration immediately. One of my university staff members, who apparently had some sort of chip on her shoulder, was deliberately delaying my application by continually displacing my paperwork. After 2 months of jumping through this woman's hoops, all other applications were approved or declined within 1 to 2 weeks. I emailed directly to her boss to complain about her. Not long after that, I received an email from the woman who called me, and I quote, a queue-jumping, daddy-loving troll. Half an hour later, I received 2 more emails, one from her and one from her boss, apologizing profusely. The boss then informed me that my special consideration was approved and that the woman had been fired. Story 6. I used to have 2 math teachers, older men, and they would send various girls to and from each other's classes with important messages to give to the other teacher. Years later, I talked to one of the girls, and it turns out they were sending hot girls dressed in something like a short skirt or revealing outfit for the other to check out, and the notes always had something gross and launched on it.
Ooh, sounds like maybe the principal or something should send a little note to each of those teachers, have some students deliver some friggin' pink slips so they lose their jobs and are on a list. Cripes.
Story 7. I had a substitute teacher sub for me one day, and in her substitute teacher report for my 8th grade class, she wrote, Jenny, name changed, was lifting up her shirt to show the boys her navel ring. I predict she will be pregnant by next year. Story 8. I went to the high school my mom taught at. Teachers were at my house all the time. They never held anything back, and so it is nearly impossible to hold it to a single thing that one of them said. But here are a few that stand out. I effing hate future valedictorian, but I'm not going to be the one who gives him an A- or his count mom will throw a fit. It's not worth the hassle. That effing kid has no sense of reality. Once his daddy's money stops flowing, he's going to be in prison. I can't wait to visit him there. Regarding 2 attractive twin brothers a year behind me. Which one is hotter? I'd F them both at the same time. I would kill that little bee if I could get away with it.
Okay, I know I've said in the past that, teachers need to be able to kind of vent to each other a little bit, like everyone does, you talk about stuff when people aren't there. A line is being crossed here. Some of it's kind of upsetting to hear teachers saying, and some of it's incredibly upsetting to hear teachers saying. So, what a fun story.
Story 9. A student in 5th grade saw a psychologist to test him for learning difficulties. This was an average student of accepting, educated parents in a private school. The psychologist told the kid's parents that he would never go to college. What the F? How can you limit a 10-year-old's future like that? The parents were upset, but luckily ignored her. His current high school is a much better fit for him, and he's not the top of the class. There's no reason he shouldn't be able to pursue higher education if that's what he wants. Story 10. I heard that some teacher at my school once literally told a student that he was a nasty, filthy little piece of crap, and that he should go back to the toilet, which he was torn out of. That teacher was really angry, and the kid he insulted really was a butt. He got an official warning, but got away scratched. The kid was one that could handle things like it, so he took it lightly. It sure left an impression, though. Story 11. Heard a lot of creepy comments about female students. Some were subtle and some less subtle, but the worst one was actually from a female teacher talking about a male student. Paraphrasing, When he wears those tight jeans, I just want to give him a spank, you know? She used to buy him stuff all the time and pay him a lot of attention. People thought it was strange, but it was okay because she was also his aunt.
No, it isn't. It's worse. I mean, I assume that's what you're getting at. I feel like you gotta put that last comment in, like, double italics or something to just, because, no. Oh my God, it's his aunt also, and his aunt should be fired and maybe, I don't know, kept away from children all the time.
Story 12. My senior year of high school, I took a freshman class that was required to graduate. My teacher turned to me once when all of the freshmen were being loud and said, "This is why they don't let teachers have guns." The same teacher was arrested the next semester for taping a camera under the sink of one of the handicapped bathrooms. Another teacher was arrested that same semester for having taken pictures with hidden cameras under desks and an iPad which he would slide out from under his desk when students would go up to talk to him. They were stored on his school computer and discovered by a student. His reasoning for doing this was something along the lines of, "It started as an accident and then became a challenge to see how long I could do it." Story 13. Get a teacher drunk enough and you'll hear some crap. Both my parents were friends with a lot of teachers I had in my schools growing up. I would hear teachers talk about what kids to buy weed from, what kids would be failures, what kids would be dead in the next few years. And on one occasion, I heard a teacher refer to a student as a stupid W who would ruin her life before high school. She did get pregnant in 8th grade, but that's still a effed up thing to say. Story 14. Our chemistry teacher was taking a class on balancing chemical reactions. There is this couple talking, digging, and disturbing the class. Our teacher looks at them and says, "You guys have a nice chemistry going. Just don't turn these reactants into products." Story 15. From a colleague of my mom's, they're going to keep passing her and switch her classes and making excuses because her dad is some crappy lawyer friend of the super. I can't effing wait until she gets accepted to a great uni with her fake transcript. She'll get there barely knowing how to spell and finally understand that daddy can't fix her bullcrap forever. She'll hit a brick wall and probably resort to making fake R allegations to try to get her way. I would be shocked, but I work at the same school. Even though I'm just a janitor, well, janitors are invisible. We hear everything. Story 16. Most of the people in here posting aren't teachers. I do teach, and let me tell you, my colleagues make fun of students all the time. I've heard plenty of terrible things. Let me list some of my favorites. "I honestly don't know how this person got into college because he can't read or write past a 4th grade level. There's a student who keeps hitting on me, so I lost his final paper and said he never turned one in. Part of me wants to say F off to students coming into my office when they have stupid questions. I failed a student because one of his sentences in his research paper was too close to the opening paragraph of the reference paper he was citing. What kind of idiot does that? I'm failing the majority of my students." He was laughing as he said it.
Look, teachers are human, and I know you're going to get frustrated teaching. I get it. I would have been. I mean, it's part of why I didn't become a teacher. I would have been too frustrated, I think. But some of these things, they're too far. Like, a student was hitting on you, and so you lost his final, and that can affect his whole grades and everything. That's not great. I mean, you didn't, not the OP, but the person the OP is talking about. You get it, but... And the person laughing, "I'm failing the majority of my students. You're a bad teacher." Seriously, your job is to teach, and if you're not connecting with the majority of your students, then even if it's the worst class, as a teacher, part of your job is figuring out how to connect with those students and do it. I guess you're not a bad teacher. I shouldn't make huge sweeping generalizations, which I love to do, but you shouldn't be laughing about that stuff. You should be trying to connect with students and help them learn. That's your job.
Story 17. My teacher told us that a couple years before we had her, she had purposely called a student words that she did not know were inappropriate. She only told us that it was a 7-letter word that started with S. Naturally, I dropped everything, stopped paying attention, and started racing my brain for every tut word I knew until 5 minutes after the conversation had ended, I streamed scrotum in the middle of algebra. Teacher did not confirm nor deny, which means she confirmed. Story 18. A bit late to the party, but I had to chime in on this one. High school junior year. Most of us were around 16, some had been peeking into 17. In my AUS class, our teacher had been making some really sexist remarks. I'd only been half listening, so I can't really tell you them verbatim, but it essentially led to one of my girl classmates telling him, "If you were my age, I'd slap you so hard right now." Almost immediately, as if he had been waiting to say it for a long time, he nonchalantly replied back, "Of your age, I'd be on top of you in the back of my truck right now." The worst part is that he still works there. The school can't bring itself to fire him, and he's gotten away with so much crap like this.
Why don't schools get rid of teachers like this? I know there's like tenure and stuff, and I don't know, this is in Australia, I guess, maybe. I can't remember now. I just don't have teachers like that. Teachers who are going to make gross comments like this. Like, I don't care if you've got double sippers special tenure. Goodbye! Forever!
Story 19. Okay, so both my parents are teachers. My dad an elementary school teacher and my mom a high school teacher. From both ends, the things teachers will say about students around me. I've heard teachers racially profiling kids under the age of 12 because the writing on the bathroom wall was too ghetto to be written by a white child. I've overheard high school teachers calling students S's and talking about how they shouldn't have to teach students that were just going to end up in fast food service. Story 20. I'm an 8th grade math teacher in an urban district. Some of these kids are lazy and as dumb as a bag of bricks. I might show my frustration at times, but I don't say degrading things. That said, the number one thing that they say that is effed up is something along the lines of, "You kids will never go to college," or, "and that's why you'll never amount to anything." One of my students even wrote apology letters to my co-teacher special ed class because he lost his crap on her for basically tagging him in the middle of class. I left the classroom with him so that I could talk about what just happened. Apparently, as mentioned in his letter, she said in front of the other kids, "That's what happens when you're not raised properly." Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.